Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I want to show you a cool trick inside of FacePlant's generator section, and we're going to be making a synth sound along the way. So let's get back into this project here. This is the same project as in the last video, and in particular I want to talk about this synth over here. You can hear some cool randomization in there sometimes, and other times it's not playing at all. The way that I accomplish this is through this first macro here, and you can see there's a whole bunch of different setups here for this macro, but we're just going to worry about a few of them. You can also see a lot of different outputs for this first generator here, and it's not entirely sure where the sound is coming from as there's no output section right here. Normally you would expect something like an envelope here, or in other cases you would have like a curve here. But in this case, as you can see, there's nothing here and we're just using the outputs to go to other places. The places that we're going are these two auxiliary units in here in these individual filter modules. So there's 3 unique filter modules and they're all the same essentially in terms of settings, but they're just copies of each other and they have their own random modulator. So each filter cutoff is being controlled by an individual modulator, and each of them is generating a different random signal. Then what is happening is that in between the two auxiliaries, we have our filter here. In this case, we're using a filter, but you can put in any effects that you want in this part. The end goal is that you have a dry-wet going into the generators. So this is your dry-wet for this generator over here. You can see if I turn it turns down this auxiliary over here, and it turns up the one before the filter. And you can essentially see that we're morphing between the signal after the filter and the signal before the filter. And this mix is just here to capture both, as you can see, the output from the filter, which has as input this first auxiliary and this secondary auxiliary, and they're summed together and then go into here. Now we have 3 of them, so we need to mix them back together. In order to do that, we have our final mixer section over here, and this mixer section is just used to combine the 3 different signals. So this one is the lowest one, and then this one goes to the middle one over here, and then this one goes to the highest one over here. We then distort them together a little bit. As you can see, there's quite a bit of drive. We have our final output here, and it just sends it to lane 1 going into the effects. Then there is some final gain compensation here, as this method isn't completely like a normal dry-wet in that it raises the gain a little bit. Especially as you're dealing with more and more copies of the signal, you need to decrease the amount of gain that is added to the signal once this macro is turned up as well. Now finally here, these are some of the FM modulators that I'm using elsewhere in the patch, specifically over here. And this is not the part that I wanted to talk about. This is just your setup for the sound. As you can see, I just used 2 tones from the tones pack, FM them a little bit with our modulators, and that is what is generating the sound, but that's not the interesting part. For me, the interesting part is using the dry-wet here with this macro 1, and then controlling all of the levels here, which as you can see, changes and determines which part of the signal is being used. And you can just morph between maybe half-half, maybe you want fully dry, or maybe you want fully wet. Then for the rest of the patch, there's not much more interesting stuff going on. We have a bunch of interesting effects, I would say. Both the resonator and the flanger are kind of interesting. One is being controlled by this macro over here, and this one is just static. And then you just have your basic processing. We have some dynamics processing. We have the removal of the lower frequencies, a little bit of distortion with some spread to get some extra stereo with, and then finally a convolver for reverb. So that's all there is to talk about. This is a little bit of a shorter video, but I just wanted to point out this cool trick that I found for the generator section inside of FacePlant. And I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you want to use this patch in any of your own tracks, I'm going to post it on my Patreon page. So if you're a Patreon supporter, make sure to check it out there. But that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.